Alright, we're back in HOI4, right where we left off. I put a poll up on the last video, and as at the time that I checked it to start recording this, what I saw was it was 50-50 divided between Leonardo Mora and Valentino Rosado for who we were going to take through on this playthrough. And then there was one comment in favour of Rosado as well. Now, I don't know if that comment was also a vote, because I'm not sure if people noticed the little votey thing in the corner. I'm adding those to videos now when I want input. But we're going to go with Rosado. I'll be the tiebreaker on that because it's ambiguous as to whether or not there was a tie. And then we'll just wait for our justification on war to finish coming through on the Las Grañas settlers and criminals and people like that. Great, okay, so you'll remember last time we kind of got thrown into complete anarchy, so we're at 4% stability, which means we're terrible, and we're at 0% war support. And as a result, the Legion exiles, so the ones we beat 20 years ago but couldn't go home because they lost, have hung around and raided us, they've sort of come out of the woodwork, and they're going to start periodically doing damage to us until we do the event list to hunt them down, which is this one over here. That is not going to be our priority, though, because we have way too many other things to do right now. The first of which is going to be to win this war with Las Grañas. So we will let some time go by. I will continue researching. And hopefully, let me just check. 29 December. So, end of the war. I decided not to go back and reload or change anything. We're going to go with war the time I set myself up to, which is a little later than I'd like, but I'm going to try and be as fast as possible with this war. And really it'll hinge on whether or not I can make that naval landing work, or at least one of these river crossings work. That might be a little finicky, so I might cut the micromanagement and see, and wait until I actually am able to make a landing. We're saving up political power. The reason is we'll need both campaigning events, so to make Rosado more popular, because she starts as the least popular candidate. And if we played Mora, it would be the same problem. Guerra starts with a solid hold on the politics in the Rio Grande. But really, we're saving them up so that as soon as we go to war, we can switch our economy from a civilian economy to partially mobilised, which is the level that will be acceptable until world tension goes up higher. So until there have been more wars and it's later in the game, we can't go to war economy or total mobilisation. We'll be stuck at partial. But it's still massively better than what we have now. And Caesar continues to annex things. Who's he taking now? He's taking the Twisted Hairs, okay. So you can see Caesar's Legion is already bulking out, and it will turn all those territories it takes. It will core them using its events, it will get bonuses from them, and it will turn their tribals into more legionaries for Caesar's Legion. Caesar's Legion does tend to snowball pretty quickly, and it's only bashing them directly into the New California Republic that tends to slow them down. So we've picked Rosado. Now that we've picked Rosado, we can campaign. You can spend political power to campaign in any of these seats. You can also go on the radio, which is random, which I don't like doing. And doing this will usually tick every senator in a location one click towards you. So if they're neutral, they'll support Rosado, and if they support someone else, they'll go neutral. There's some randomness involved, but that's the default. So we need to decide where we're going to start campaigning first, and we want to pick a location where no one really supports you, or everyone is neutral. So let's find someone that meets that. Yeah, Nuevo Laredo. Yeah, sure. And look, they've all gone neutral. So if we then repeat that event as soon as it cycles back, bang, we've got 4 senators. So we started with 40, 40, 18. If we reload those figures, it's now 37, 37, 25. And we need to have a plurality of senators to reliably win the election. But the election won't come for a bit. We're going to set up the Rio Contingency Bureau. This does nothing except for allow you to then, deal with the disaster. So this is setting up a new sort of team that will help deal with the aftermath of this crap that's just happened. So we'll wait for that to cycle. And then when that cycles, it will also be time for war, which is good. I might put a cut there, and see you in a couple of weeks. Okay, we're back. I've got the Rio Contingency Bureau, and this lets us go down a couple of strings of events. In the center, you've got economic recovery and choices around that. On the left are the events that help you deal with the legionary raiders, and on the right are the ones that allow you to deal with the Texas Arms Association, the TAA. Usually, because I'm going to be going to war with someone else before I deal with the TAA, and because the raiders are just raiders, I usually do a little bit of economic recovery first. What you get to pick with here is between the New Deal and like the hard reset. The primary difference in practical terms is that the hard reset gives you military factory construction speed, whereas the New Deal gives you civilian factory construction speed and a little more stability, I believe. Yeah, more stability. So this is better for the people as a whole because you're saving more of the economy. This is allowing you to do a rapid rebuild of the economy. We're going to go with the New Deal because we're not monsters. I don't want to deliberately bankrupt people in order to get my economy rebalanced towards the military. I need the civilian economy anyway in order to build these workshops. Okay, so justification is finished. So we can declare war. We can immediately, before we forget, take our economy over to partial mobilization. We could also change conscription at this point, but we're nowhere near short on manpower. Guns are our problem, not people. We've recruited some new units, but not a huge number. Now, looking at the dispositions. So crossing rivers is quite difficult in this game. They're modeled as sea zones with straight crossings. Now, we don't have numerical superiority in the north, so I don't think we'll be able to successfully cross there. In the south, however, we've got a massive numerical advantage, and our units should be a little bit better. You can see their units are using melee weapons, whereas we have bolt-action rifles. So we should be in a better position, and there's no sign of any defenders on the port, so we should be able to drop our naval invasion across. Now, this is going to require some careful poking back and forth, so I'll be back in a minute once I've made a landing, because you don't want to watch me playing Verdun Simulator for 10 minutes until I get the balance of units exactly right. Alright, so that was not true at all. It was actually much faster than I expected. So what happens is they actually are trying to push me back because they feel they've got the numerical advantage, so good on them, but we're holding. In the south, we're advancing. It's just going to be expensive. We've made our landing. I'm going to send our special forces units to try and take this port for supply purposes, whereas this army here is going to secure a victory point. So let's move out, because at the moment these guys don't have supply. They need to take this in order to have supply. Good, he's taken that, so they're now in supply. Now, because they're now having to abandon their posts to respond, there's room for these guys to push across, and as this unit comes in here, it'll be attacked here, which will prevent it from reinforcing here. So at least we're in a position to hold this area up north. Now, we'll then force that attack, which means we're going to take more casualties, but we're going to do more damage in return. Because at the moment, you can see they've had to divert a lot of units to dealing with... they've had to divert a lot of units to dealing with these two right here. Now, the key is we need to make sure we don't lose these two units, because otherwise, because they have nowhere to retreat to, they'll be destroyed. But if two units can pin down a whole bunch of the enemies, that gives me hope that we'll be able to secure a crossing probably down here. And if we can do that, then we're in business. Sorry, I had a phone call there. Alright, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. I still think this southern area is our best hope. The enemy doesn't seem to have enough units to cover these fronts up here. So there's room for a partial breakout, so we can at least broaden this scope here and hopefully no units come across. That's then diverted some of their units there. That's now a potential crossing too. This is going to be bloody, by the way. So, oh no, they're actually taking much higher casualties. So there are two things that you lose. You lose unit organization and you lose people. And what's happening is it seems like while they're holding us, they're taking a lot more casualties doing it. I imagine a lot of that comes down to the fact that they're armed with tire irons and we have rifles. So even though they have defensive terrain on their side, there's an inherent advantage there. And you can see they know their numbers are a bit frayed. Now we don't outnumber them much really. 2.35 to 2.88. In fact, they might have a slight numerical advantage. Now that means that someone's probably sent them volunteers, one of the other a criminal syndicate maybe. But I'm trusting that if I can break through, I can pull off some encirclements that will make this better. This is a risky opening strategy, right? So it can go very, very wrong, but if it goes right, and I hope that's what we'll see for all members of the public, I may dump a save, it really changes the way the rest of the game is played, because you've got a much more of an industrial base than you had expected to work with. But I'm happy at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 enemy, we'll call them companies. I think company is about the right unit size, holding down 2 of ours, which gives us more chance to cross the road. If I was really gutsy, I could try and pull an encirclement now, but I don't want to try and do that until I'm actually across the river in at least one location. The real key is, can they spare units to reinforce down here? And I'm hoping not. They seem to be moving some units down. I really want to be able to force a crossing before then. And they're putting pressure on up there, but I'm okay as long as that doesn't actually tick over. Good. Okay. All right. Pause. We are now across the river. We're across the Rio Grande. This is extremely important. We've crossed in 2 spots. This crossing seems less important because I've got so many units dedicated to fighting us that it's more problematic. We might broaden the front out just a little bit so we have 2 crossing points and they can be mutually reinforcing. We should also have some, so we've got 2 units that are really, really close to being fully complete. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy them without their, so they're now, you can see, just shy of being skilled all the way up, but I'm still going to assign them to that front right there, so that they can pour in a few reinforcements up there and broaden that area. This area, however, while this unit's pinned in the south, we're going to set up an encirclement, and hopefully we'll then be able to destroy this unit. That looks like they know what we're doing, so we're going to send 3 units to take that province there, and then if he gets here, yep, he does. Because that unit can't move while it's being attacked, we're going to broaden the front. The real win for us would be if we're able to take this province here and thus join up with our special forces units that cross the river. There's no reason for this unit. Like, I don't think they're going to waste energy counterattacking. Oh, they might. So we'll leave that there. Should this unit be... Yes, I know other people are fighting wars and whatnot, but I'm just micromanaging this one. Normally in HOI4 you play big strategic decisions, but in this sort of level of war where it's all up in the air, I like to micromanage a bit just to get the early wins on the board. Port Mora's joined the Northern League, so that means an alliance is forming. Way away from us. Where's Port Mora? Port Mora. So have they joined up with the Broken Coast? We'll check in on them later when we do a sort of politics update. Right now I'm focused on not stuffing this up while people are watching. Okay, and with the encirclement complete, what that means is when units are defeated while encircled, instead of retreating, they cease to exist. And that's really what we need. So I'm trading organization and blood for time, and I'm using that time to encircle a bunch of enemies. So the question is, where are we going to do now? So we could try to break through. That's really problematic. So I think we're going to have to do something like this. So we're going to have to try and carve through here, encircle those 4 units, and reinforce here, because these units they've been fighting really hard against many, many more opponents for a period of time. They really require relief. Meanwhile, can't forget the economy, just like Dominion, so we are now going to bail out the arms industry, which is going to start getting stability, war support, and construction speed back, which we need. I'm just going to ignore Palace's raids. Now that unit there holding is just fine. That's all I really need. This unit is now surrounded, so even though it's fully dug in, and this looks like 2 reformed raiders, reformed in inverted commas. So it looks like there's three companies in there, and we're going to try and eliminate them all. I know this unit's losing, but I'd rather them just keep these units here so this unit can't walk south and break this. Once these units are destroyed, all of these units become available for me to reinforce this pocket. This unit looks like it's going to have to retreat here, and if we can't relieve it in time... No, don't you dare. Don't you dare. You push through, and I don't care what the cost is. In fact, 2 of your units give up on that attack. 2 of your units can cross the river and join that attack too. Because you need to link up with these guys. I'm doing the encirclement here. I will not be encircled myself. Now, while this says it's going to take 24 days, that'll go down quite quickly because with no access to supplies, nowhere to reinforce from, their organisation should degrade relatively quickly. So it's just a question of how long can we hold. Meanwhile, up here we're breaking through much faster, which is good because we need to clear 2 provinces in order to make room here. You need to attack them to make sure they can't move into that province. Come on. You can see what I mean about this war going to be a close run thing if you do it early. Okay. Now the AI is trying to be defensive here. My AI, sorry, is trying to be defensive here, which I don't want. I need a breakthrough, and I'm going to get a breakthrough. I'm going to pin units, and I'm going to do whatever I can to break through to the Special Forces units. Come on, crack them. Crack them. If we can do this, then this also doubles up as a encirclement on this unit here. So at that point, we will be in a really, really good spot. Oh, look, we've rediscovered how to manufacture resistors on a large scale. That's good. What do we want to research? We're researching plant cultivation. Let's use clay working, because while we have some industry, having clay working means that the people who don't have industry still have things that they can use. Okay, great. All right, awesome. Pause. We're holding, we're losing, and these units are really paying the price. So they've all lost men. I imagine most of our 27 casualties have actually come from that crossing there, because that's a really bloody way to stall a unit. But AI is smart enough to realize that we've now encircled a unit here, so we're in business. Let's stage a diversionary attack up there while most of our units turn around. Let's try and surrender this unit and surrender these units down here. That should change our loss ratio significantly. Come on. Okay, they're dissolved. So now we're at 67 lost against 737 killed or wounded. And all of these units... Okay, so the AI now wants to redivert them up north. I think that's wrong. I think they need to go here and launch an offensive to carve out more of the north here. So let's do that. Caesar's Legion is going to war with another tribal group. We've lost our encirclement, it looks like, which is unfortunate, because it just exacerbates our problem from before. So let's take 3 of those units and re-establish that cordon. But I think we're going to be sitting on the advantage now. We don't have many more units in the bank, but with that encirclement sort of in position, and hopefully we can re-establish this one before that unit breaks. Yep, so we've re-established that encirclement. Kill him. Great, okay, so the question now is, did we want to send more units up there to make more of that situation, or do we just want to crack the south wide open? Now, my answer is going to be, let's crack the south wide open. So let's send this unit on a bit of a run all the way up to that victory point. This unit can guard its inner flank, because there's nothing out here, so we're just going to open this area up. Add more, and just try and break this place down. That's a really expensive way of keeping 2 units stopped with 1, so we don't have to guard our back line here. These infantry are starting to broaden out that flank. These poor sods, we've been telling them to attack that river for literally months at this point, and this is probably representing continuous skirmishing across the crossing. Quite bloody for them, but look at this, we've fixed that area, so we now have a solid hold. I do not think we'll lose this war now. We have a significant manpower advantage. Their equipment problems should be pronounced, and we have a breakthrough. So I'm actually not going to do... Oh, actually, what I might do is do this. Let's see if we can get away with this. Let's see if we can turn that into a mini encirclement too, while we're doing this sort of strategic flank maneuver. Okay, so as long as you haven't dealt with the Legion, you'll continually be raided. So we'll just make repair a higher priority. What are we going to research? What do we want? Can we research? Yes, we can. Let's research doggos. Trained mongrels. Useful in the wasteland. And it looks like we will be able to turn this into encirclement. They just don't have enough units, is the problem for them at this point. Because we can bring another unit in here and guard this area, whereas they can't. Now we added the special forces there, which instantly made a difference. So we're going to eventually break through there. But our priority is this. Our priority is to turn this into more of an encirclement. And by throwing these units into the enemy rear line, we can occupy some of their industrial and supply centers, which will cause a problem for them. This unit on the inside line is really to do things like this, to catch these units. Meanwhile, we're staging a mini breakthrough over here, which will hopefully turn into an encirclement of these 4 companies there. And I think that'll be all she wrote for that flank. Good. A unit's eliminated up there. What's our casualty ratio? About 10 to 1. I'll take it. Especially when we have the industrial and manpower advantage and could afford to trade at like negative ratios. Come on. Okay, so let's get sneaky again. So when you've got more units than your opponent, you can certainly be rewarded for doing these sort of micro encirclements, which are a good way to eliminate like bases of units. We've bailed out the arms industry. Do we want to start setting up for the Rio Grande? This is about getting timing right. Yes, I'm going to start setting up for the Rio Grande because I'm confident enough in how this war is going that I'm ready to set up for the next stage. No awards for sitting on your ass in this game, or any game really, or in life. So we're going to send out special forces. He's going to retreat now, so let's start to attack so he can't get out of there. Now special forces units move very quickly relative to infantry units, so they're in a good position to start, and he's counterattacking to try and avoid being encircled there. AI is not idiotic. Now the real question here is, do we risk widening this even further and sweeping out for these victory points over here, or do we bring it back in to start completing an encirclement, noting that we now have a breakthrough here? Now the AI wants to turn this all into frontline. The AI is wrong. Most of our units should go there. 1 unit should lock that guy there down, and 1 unit should lock them down. And what that'll do is turn this into an encirclement and give this unit a green line to... Oh, this is tough. So this is basically me deciding between, do I want a military victory where I turn this all encirclement, destroy all their units, or do I want to try and end run their victory points? And appropriately decided, because this unit is now trying to cut our line. So let's instead come back and turn this all into a pocket. You've got one. They've moved 1 unit down here, which is probably going to try and get behind us and cut this line, thus turning us into an encirclement. So what we need to do is dissolve these units here really quickly so we can free these units up. What I might even do is let them now handle that encirclement and let him go up and deal with that company up there. Meanwhile, our encirclement up here is complete, so that needs to be destroyed, and that needs to be destroyed as a matter of urgency. Desert Rangers smashing the Jackals. We'll put 1 of those infantry units on that. Good. Dissolved. And then this will reverse. This will be similar to the situation we had in the south, wherein because we've destroyed all their units, we can then go hog wild on a bit of an offensive as a result. In fact, with the special forces, I may even start doing something like that, which will cause the AI to flip out, realize it doesn't have enough units, and try and reprioritize, which should take some pressure off the south exactly when I need it to, because the south is it's under control, but it's not great. Could be better. 10 out of 10 could be better. There's room to cross here, but then that unit might immediately get its line cut, and I don't want that. No, you attack there because we're going to need that. And you do cut that line, and you take that. They're trying to prevent the encirclement. Our counter unit here is moving in. That annihilation's happening. Good, okay. So now the AI wants to be conservative and just reinforce the front. AI, as usual, is not aggressive enough for my tastes. I don't want smooth lines, I want victory. One of these units can follow the Special Forces units to stop that Special Forces unit up there from being cut off and destroyed. Come on, destroy this unit. Yeah, so he's now trying to fix that. So what I'll do is I'll give that one to the AI, I'll bring that down. You go up and fight them. Resistance to occupation. So the longer you're at war, the more likely it is for the local population to resist your presence. That's now happening, but I think too little too late. And I don't think these guys are going to be able to take enough territory to cause us problems. That said, I'm starting to worry a little bit about the numbers that they've concentrated in the south. We really need to use the forces we've got in the north to distract them and draw off more men in order to keep this scenario as squeaky clean as it has been in the previous months. This war's been going for 3 months now, so short war. Another little encirclement, I'll take it. No, don't go reinforce that side. Come around here. Reinforce that fight. I'm not concerned that we're not winning a lot of these battles. A lot of these battles is me trading org and men for position. We'll warn the Texas Arm Association citizenry that we're not okay with them leaving, and that if they're loyal to Rio, they should hang around, or they should be ready to help us, or at least side against the TAA. Now, it keeps wanting to be conservative. I don't want you to be conservative. I want you to win. Let's turn that whole thing into a pocket. They'll break it pretty quickly, but they will have org disruptions in the meantime. We, meanwhile, have one pocket of our own. We've got one unit up here pocketed, but the idea is we'll break through here and reunify. And I don't think they have enough units to cause a problem about it. And this unit here is here to stop that. So yeah, they'll retake all of this, that's fine, but we will re-establish our line of communication with our unit. And I'm happy with the sort of draw on that situation because we've just destroyed more of their units. So yeah, their army's in a pretty bad way. The question now is, do we keep destroying units or do we go for a victory point situation? Let's dance a little more. Let's dance just a little more. Let's see if we can get. First of all, let's just straight up punt into some victory points. Yeah, I'm happy with you going up there to reinforce that line, and you come down and cut that. Take that. Now, Special Forces can probably take them on. Question is, can we take that province there? And I think we can. And even that in of itself will turn this into an encirclement. And then let's start collapsing it a little bit. Oh, they attacked so immediately that we don't actually get ownership of the province in the interim. Okay, this is problematic. So we now need to retreat that Special Forces unit because I don't want to lose it. But with us broadening the front a little bit, I don't think we're in huge trouble. I think we've got them. It's just ugly for the moment. was paying better attention, I probably wouldn't have made some of those mistakes, but we're killing a heck of a lot more of their units than they are of ours. Special Forces unit is safe. Front sort of restabilizing. And once this guy's killed, we'll free up these units. I'm always happy to have units freed up. The problem is they've concentrated so much down here that we're in a tough way on that part of the front, but we're doing really well everywhere else. Come on. And the AI keeps wanting to yeah, that's right. So keep moving across here. And as soon as we collapse that, done. Okay. At this stage, I think it's mostly cleanup. We're going to come back. You'll see from the date how long it's taken me to clean this up, but I should be done pretty soon, and then we'll talk about the next stage of the politics. We're back a little bit earlier. I promised the next time the war will be over, but I just wanted to flag two things. One, there were some extra pockets, so great, but you'll notice that some of these divisions are free fighter divisions, so nations can send volunteers to help fight for other nations in wars that they have an interest in. So these guys down here, the free fighters, who are the luchador-inspired guys, some of their divisions are fighting in Las Grañas, and we will be killing and weakening parts of their army. I'm actually fine with that, because it means they might be rivals for later. The second thing is, we have to decide how to deal with the Texas Arms Association. There's a couple of ways of doing it. And usually these multiple paths that you have represent the three candidates and how they think. I think there's good and bad choices for both, and then there's like arguable tiers within them. I think the crappiest version for this is the Guerra path, whereby you negotiate with the TAA and eventually you sign a trade agreement with them. You basically forgive them for blowing up your capital and for being the people that they were, and for just bombing your capital city and ruining your political system and oppressing people and whatnot. So you forgive them and they become an ally. I think it's shit. The second thing is the Mora path, which gives you the ability to raise up militias in these areas. So spend political power to rally militias, then you go in, you invade, and you take it back. Rosado says, why would we even do this ourselves? Rosado says, let's go talk to the Texas Brotherhood of Steel, who's over here off map, and say, look, if you come in and beat up the TAA for us and set up yourselves as a subsidiary, so set yourself up as a puppet of Rio, you can keep their arms factories. Now, the weakness of this path compared to Mora's path is that you don't get the Texas Arms Association's factories back. But what you do get is a Brotherhood of Steel puppet, and you get nifty bonuses along the way. I'm going to go with this path, and as we go through, hopefully you'll see the value of why, even though it means giving up this territory to a puppet. Also, I think you'd find this funny. Sorry, I know I keep coming back. Our longboat and canoes are fighting their canoes, and luckily our canoes are at this point winning, and theirs are trying to run away, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, Naval Warfare and Fallout. Oh, for God's sake. The AI loves garrisoning borders even when there's no threat, because it sees these provinces up here. It's like, oh, well, we need to have a unit to guard those borders. No, you bloody don't, you idiot. Just take them, then the AI will stop doing it. Alright. So that war took us until... I'm not sure, I can't see the date in this menu. We're just going to take everything, because they surrendered. So what happened is we got behind them and we took those a bunch of those victory points, which coupled with their losses convinced them to surrender. So we'll just end turn done. And we seize 1,138 equipment. Now, if I'm right, most of that equipment's going to be, basic melee weaponry. So if we want, we can force out some more units and we can train some more units, but they'll have melee weaponry until we build guns to support them, to basically fix the situation, basically. And that's it. That's Las Grañas taken. That's almost doubled our number of factories overnight, and means that we're now in a position, it's April, so that took me about 4 months thereabouts to win that war. We lost about 200 and something people, which is entirely acceptable for conquering a nation that large. What would usually happen next is, and you're not meant to have done this, you're meant to wait and take Texas back, and we're focusing on Texas now. But because justifying wars takes so long, we're going to, because I'm a terrible warmonger, spend 185 days justifying on this cartel, Beltran-Levia cartel, however you pronounce that, while we get our army in position to deal with the Texans. So we're going to move all of our forces over. There'll be no naval invasions this time. Just a good set of offensive preparations, and we'll tell our navy to stand down. We sunk one of the enemy canoes, by the way, which is awesome. Sunk an enemy canoe. And these guys will all go back to port. They'll repair. We've built a lot of convoys, so we can probably ease up on the convoys now. Oh, NCR's taken the Scorpions. See, whenever you win, you see one of the other big powers has taken something and is threatening. So, New California Republic has already subdued all of this territory here and is doing really well. 1 second. I wasn't aware I was recording there. So, Rio chapter is almost done. And once that happens, you should see what Rosado has in store for these treacherous Texans. Dial that back to speed 4. I've refined our military organisation a little bit. I've appointed a field marshal. I paid to have a new unit, a new commander rather. Our factories are in much better shape now that we took the Las Grañas ones. We're not going to get any factories out of this war, but we'll get something that's in some ways more valuable, as well as the tech bonuses that we've already got. Free civilians. I think I need an arms workshop in Gloria, since we won't be retaking the TAA ones. There we are. The Texan Brotherhood was always a mite peculiar to the other chapters. Cut off from the Brotherhood's heartland and inspired by the open recruiting of the Midwest Brotherhood, it was far more willing to interact with Wastelanders. Rosado's proposal to give them control over the Texan military-industrial complex was welcomed, and Paladin Miller was sent south with a detachment of men. As the TAA was about to find out, whatever happens, they have got laser guns, and they have not. Obviously a play on the old, whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun, and they have not, which was a British colonial stalwart in the late pre-World War I colonial era. So, this removes the national spirit Texas secessionist. The Rio chapter spawns and has calls on all the TAA territory, and we declare war on the TAA. And here, the Rio chapter appears. Now, we actually have to call them into the war. They then join. Great. And we have freed up to focus on other things. Now, we can keep playing down this path for more economic recovery, or we can take out Paulus. I'm going to take out Paulus. And we're going to launch our offensives. Now, with the Brotherhood in their rear, their situation is really not tenable. There's not a huge amount they can do. Power armor troops are very difficult to deal with, and they're fast, and they do well in most conditions. So, what are you going to do? We'll just stall those units, storm across the river, and take what we can. Not that it really matters. All we're really looking forward is a quick surrender on the part of the TAA, so that we can redeploy and deal with more important matters. Also, I think a quick war makes a point, right? We might do some political campaigning while that's happening, because, you know, she's just got the Brotherhood of Steel in to help us out. So let's pull... Who's good? Monclava? Yep. Let's rally Monclava twice. How many deputies are we up to? 31. We're catching up with the big guys. We'll train some more doggos, because I want to get to the point where our entire army has doggo units attached. And then we'll drop production back down. And you can see we've cleaned them up. We've absolutely cleaned them up. The Brotherhood's taken pretty much everything worth anything. We'll come in. I think once Eagle Pass falls, they'll surrender. Build more canoes. Might branch out and get some long ships, because we're badasses over here to supplement our canoes. I just like canoes because they have good detection. You can put them all different locations on the river, so you can get a lot of locations covered. Eagle Pass. And that should be it. Thank you. So we'll just pass a bunch. We'll give We'll give everything to the Brotherhood, except we'll take one thing for ourselves. Oh wait, no, I wasn't giving that to the Brotherhood. I meant to give that to the Brotherhood. And then we'll take one thing for ourselves, just so that the event where we then give it to the Brotherhood and the Brotherhood is appreciative fires. Cool. And we will now deploy everyone south. Hunt down Palace. Those guys weren't originally included, so let's include them. Why would I do this? Why would I give away a bunch of our heartland to a puppet? Now, yes, the puppet will now use that territory effectively because they've got cores in it, so they can use the manpower. And yes, they'll use the arms factories to produce units. But what am I trying to get out of this? Rio chapter comes into its own, so they get that province, and then we get a whole bunch of resource production in Gloria, which is there thanks to us. Still better than the TAA. So people are like, oh, are you sure it's a good idea that we gave the Brotherhood all that sort of stuff? Well, look at our next conflict, right? This cartel, 16 to 31 units, which is, they probably have about as many men as we do, and they have defensive terrain, and it's a narrow front. And we're going to have a slight tech lead, but how are we going to deal with that? Like, what are we going to do in order to make that situation manageable? Well, if you go over here, and you go this, and you do this. What's that? 6 veteran units of power armor troops. Don't mind if I do. And that's why I like puppeting the Rio chapter of the Brotherhood. See you soon.